staff, you're talking about staff name.
Yeah, me, active meter Connor, or Steve, and Steve Halgren, H-A-L-L-G-R-E-N. Phil Doyle,
I know.
Phil, and then Brad Beck.
Is it? Yeah.
You know that Yahoo in the second row.
I think I know it,
Well,
yeah.
vote no against his. He's not going to let you speak.
It's 4 o'clock. Call the meeting of the Sheldon Board of Adjustment to order. We need a roll call.
Deanna Woods. Here. Terry Braxton.
Here.
Dave Vandenberg.
Here.
Kathy Kruger. Here. April Schaefer.
Here.
Stephen Morrow. Here. Lee Rivers.
Here. Thank you. Item 2, review and approve the minutes for May 16th meeting. Any questions?
Can we change the yet to a yes?
Yeah, that's the only thing I saw too.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know they're right next to each other on the keyboard, but
Need a motion to approve if there's no other questions.
so moved.
I'll second.
Call the roll.
Braxton.
Yes.
Rivers.
Yes.
Stephen Morrow.
Yes.
Kruger. Yes. Schaefer.
Yes.
Woods. Yes. Vandenberg.
Yes.
Item 3, consider variance for deck fence at 312 West 10th Street, L&K Construction, on the behalf of Jennifer Sundstrom. I don't see Jennifer here, is she?
I just talked to her. She said she wasn't coming.
Okay, all right. Sam, do you want to discuss that a bit?
I can. We did receive one public comment. It's a letter of support from Kyla Barnes, and it's been linked to the agenda. Have no concerns. I think we can proceed.
Any questions for Sam or anyone on this? I think, Kathy, you have an announcement to make on this one?
I'm going to abstain from this vote for business reasons.
Thank you. Mainly, I think the exception is for the deck. The fence is to be completed as we approved before. And no complaints from anyone, and I do think there's a letter of support in the file. So I need a motion on this item.
Make a motion to approve.
I would support.
Call the roll.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Kruger. Abstain. Woods. Yes. Braxton.
Yes.
Stephen Morrow.
Yes.
Rivers.
Yes.
And Vandenberg.
Yes.
Item 4, consider variance for sign replacement at Children's World. Code limit is 36 by 36. Current size is 120 by 30, and the proposed size is 120 by 40. Brandon, do you want to come up to the podium and explain your request for Children's World? Explain to everyone who you are, too.
Hi, I'm Brandon Braxton. I am the board president for Children's World, and we're looking to update our sign at Children's World so it matches the existing logo. In addition to that, the preschool is no longer at Children's World, so the existing sign is outdated. So, and yeah, any questions? I don't know.
It's not to be lit.
Yeah, it's not to be lit. It's going to be a little bit bigger, so the logo looks correct. So, it's going to be done by Autographics.
No public comments, Sam?
No, I would just like to add that there was a large number of people that received the notice because of the size of the lot. And I did have one person on the north side asking why they got the notice. And I said that's because of the size of the lot. There's no concern at all.
Sounds good.
Questions for Brandon?
I make a motion that we accept the variance for the size of the replacement sign.
Thank you. Thank you. Call the roll.
Vandenberg.
Yes.
Kruger. Yes. Schaefer.
Yes.
Stephen Morrow.
Yes.
Rivers.
Yes.
Braxton.
Yes.
Woods. Yes.
Carried. Item 5, consider variance to facility redevelopment of the former Bethel Church site. And if you look on your program, there's quite a number of variances requested. The reason that the number is there is because this development and the type of design is not covered under any of our codes. And I think Sam can explain a little bit to that, and then we have several people here that are going to discuss that. Beck Engineering is here, the designers, and we'll let Sam start here.
Thank you, Terry. There are 6 lots there now that predate 1947 when the Bethel Church was built. Those 6 lots would be replatted into 14 lots with a common area. The 14 lots would be individually platted and individually owned. So it would be similar to Heritage Estates, but not the same model exactly, because Heritage Estates is a condominium arrangement, and this would be where the property owner would own the property underneath, which is being done that way for financing reasons. One of the questions that came up yesterday that I'd like to address up front, because it was an excellent question that was asked, is one of the questions that came up was, couldn't we just do 4 houses instead of 14? And if you did that, would the houses be not as close to the north property line? If you had the 4 houses there facing the streets, the north property line, instead of being considered a rear setback or a front setback, would then become a side setback. And under the zoning code, the setback is 6 feet. So that's something to consider. What's being asked for on the north side is greater than that. Another question that came up yesterday, which was also an excellent question, would rentals be allowed? And the answer was yes by the applicant, and there was some concern raised to me after the meeting on that, so I went and researched it. And in 2020, the Iowa legislature prohibited cities from enacting rules to stop Airbnbs and short-term rentals from coming in. Longer-term rentals are potentially something that could be addressed in the covenants. I believe one of the part of the idea behind this was to provide flexibility to the property owners, but that's something that the applicant can address. So that's all I have for now.
Okay. In light of the number of people we have here that probably want to make comments, I plan to limit this to the schedule that I'm going to define here. We've got staff here, Todd, Steve, Mr. Strauss here, and who else is here? His staff. I'm forgetting. Oh, Sam. Okay, you've already discussed.
I've already talked.
Okay. Then we're going to have those folks address the issues after the engineer, Beck, discusses things. Brad? And then we will go to public comments, and I want to have all the comments made at that time. So if you've got things to discuss, have them in order, because you won't be coming back to the podium after we've concluded public comments. And then the commission, if we have any questions for any of the people or the staff, that's the time to ask them. And we'll let the response come from the engineers or the developer or the staff. And then we'll go to decision. So at this point, I'll open it up to Brad for Beck Engineering, or anyone else who wants to speak on behalf of the project.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us today. Again, Brad Beck with Beck Engineering is my name. Exciting week for us. We're celebrating day number 3 of being open in business in Sheldon, and also have a project that hopefully will be providing some progress to the city. So a lot of fun things happening this week. A little of this will be redundant for those that were here last night, but I'll give a brief overview of the project. And Todd, the Public Works / IT Director, now will get it on the big screen for us. So yeah, again, the Bethel Church property, a potential redevelopment of that property, bounded on the south by 7th Street and between 6th Avenue and 7th Avenue. The current proposal, as has been mentioned, is a zero lot line subdivision, which currently the subdivision ordinance in the city is set up more for a traditional subdivision. Other communities have a separate section for zero lot line developments, and at this time Sheldon does not, so that kind of preempts the need for the variances. So there will be a sixplex on the northern portion of the property, and on the southern portion of the property there will be two different fourplexes. Through the center of the property, running generally east to west, will be a 26-foot wide concrete street. That will be a private street with the intent to have the garages on the backside all facing that street. Each of those garages are a 2-stall garage, and then the driveways are set up to where there's room for 2 parking stalls in front. So a total of 56 off-street parking stalls. And I think that's one of the major attributes of this project is, especially in the wintertime, parking on the street can be tough, and this gets everybody off the street with this arrangement. Along the north side of the sixplex, as well as the east and the west, is a private sidewalk that goes to a private sidewalk on the north side of the street, of the private street. On the south end of the project, on the north side of 7th Street, there will be some additional concrete paving that will provide angled parking stalls. Those will be on city right-of-way, so those would be available for anybody, but the intent would be that there'd be additional parking stalls for guests or visitors of these 14 units. We're fortunate on this property to have adequate water, sanitary sewer services close. The sanitary sewer will connect to 7th Avenue about mid-block north of 7th Street and will flow from the west to the east. And the water service will be on the south side of the private street, and we're able to loop this system, so we'll have some redundancy and some increased pressure, which will also help with fire protection. So we'll connect to the existing water main on 7th Avenue, go in between the housing units, and then head south on the west side of Lot 7 to connect to an existing water main on the south side of 7th Street. From a drainage perspective, we'll follow existing drainage patterns. Everything generally flows to the southeast. It's a very flat site, but it does flow southeast. So we'll have a private storm sewer system where we have 2 intakes on the east end of the private street to intercept the water before it gets to the public right-of-way. And then we'll have a storm sewer intake on the northeast side of the property as well as the northwest side of the property to catch surface runoff from those areas, as well as downspout outlets. So those are the high points of the project from an engineering perspective, and I'd be happy to answer questions now if you have some, or I can certainly come back up later if you have questions a little bit later in the meeting.
Any immediate questions for Brad?
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I think one of the things before we continue, the planning and zoning did approve this yesterday. And one of the issues, Steve, you may want to address this, is we are going to have a rewrite, apparently, of some of the code. You want to come up and address that? Steve is working on contract, I believe, for the city. Can you state your name and your
Correct.
title?
Yeah, Steve Holgren, and I am president, owner of Planning Solutions. I'm a consultant retained by the city of Sheldon to help out with zoning and code enforcement. So, yeah, it was brought up yesterday. Whether the city needs to or wants to is an issue for the city staff and planning and zoning commission and ultimately city council moving forward. So it's nothing that would be required. It's as I explained yesterday a little bit, it's a little bit like putting a square peg into a round hole. You know, it just, the city's regulations were kind of intended for a traditional block and lot subdivision is kind of how the city's current regulations are written. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just we're seeing zero lot line development. It's becoming more and more popular, I guess. We're seeing it occur in more and more cities, even across northwest Iowa. So somewhere down the line, you know, if the city wants to look at that, it might be something to look at.
For the commission, could you explain the difference between a zero lot line development and a condominium development?
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest way to describe it would be, I'm gonna step over here real quick. The easiest way to describe it would be like, instead of 14 lots, you would basically have 3 lots. So where this cluster of buildings is, would be like 1 lot. This cluster of buildings would be 1 large lot, and the whole north half of the block would be 1 lot. So when you're applying setbacks, you're only looking at setbacks 1 side yard, 1 front yard, 1 rear yard, 1 side yard. Under a 0 lot line development, you've got all these interior lots that are roughly 25 foot wide. Well, you can see there's no side yard setback. Under a traditional zoning, all of these lots would still be required to have all of the appropriate setbacks. So that's the main difference. But from a ownership perspective, under a condominium development, you don't own the land underneath you, you own a percentage of the land, or it's under a horizontal property regime. You own a part of it on paper, but this way, they'll actually have title or deed to that recorded lot that is associated with that dwelling unit.
Thank you. Any questions for Steve?
So,
Thank
all right.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Sam, anything more?
I do have one question for Brad. We didn't have a chance to talk today before the meeting, so hopefully I'm not catching you off guard too bad, but yesterday in P&Z there was this discussion about the concrete driveway on the north side. And I think it was mentioned that there wouldn't be any driveway removed. I don't know if you could briefly address that.
So where Sam is referencing, Todd will scroll down just a little bit, it'll be Mr. Reeker's property. And it's not shown on the preliminary plat, right? It's not on the final either. I've got it on our construction documents.
Bring it up in Beacon.
And Reeker's garage is right on the property line as it exists now, and there's no intent to do anything
There's
different.
not. Mark actually thought that the garage was 2 feet over the lot line. Our survey shows that it's right on the lot line. There may be a few inches of his overhang that's over, but the actual structure is on his own property. So that was good news. He was anticipating that his garage was over by 2 feet, and he may need to do something about that. So that has been resolved as well. So that was good news for both sides.
Good, thank you. Anything else, Sam? Okay. In your packet, we did get some public comment, some letters of support, and a letter from Craig asking for consideration of non-approval. And so at this point, if no questions for Sam on any of the letters, I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Craigden Hartog, 618 7th Avenue, Sheldon. I'm still...
Craig, can you pull that down a little
you
bit?
bet. Is that better?
Better.
I'm still concerned about the variance. If you turn to page 2, and I understand that this is a whole new beast that we're working with, but it does not seem to fit into our residential area. It would fit perfectly over by the pavilion, I think. So maybe there should be some consideration as to moving that project over there. There's a huge lot that's empty over there that would love to be developed, and why stuff a big pig into a small size? Every single variance that is listed does not fit this area for that project. Why, I guess, is the question. Why would you want to put that into this residential area, other than the fact that, okay, the lot prices are good? What would be the reason? Any comments?
I certainly don't have a clue to answer your question on that, but we're here for the variances. And I read your letter, I listened yesterday to you, and I think Brad explained pretty thoroughly the water concerns. The snow concerns, they've tried to alleviate those. On the sound concern with the air conditioners for the rear of your building, to, the rear lot line or whatever, the 13.5-foot variance. Your house, as I understand it, is over 50 feet away from the other units.
It is. Not only that, why would we even be concerned with where my house is when I'm more concerned with myself or family members being outside enjoying our backyard? I actually today went outside and listened to my central air conditioner, and at 35 feet away with a fairly new unit, there is noise that you can hear easily. Now you add to that 5 more air conditioners and you have considerably more decibel. So it's not the distance from my lot line to my house, it's the distance from the lot line to where I'm trying to enjoy my backyard.
And I hear you. I'm not saying it's not a legitimate concern. All I'm saying is I understand what it is. The rest of us need to understand what's reasonable and logical.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked the question.
Okay. If you consider going outside and trying to talk to someone 10 feet away from your air conditioner, you can't have a conversation. We're talking now 13.5 feet away and having 6 air conditioners back there. I think somehow you have to support the 25-foot variance so that everybody can be happier.
My suspicion is that you would not be happy with a 25-foot variance.
You do that and I'll be happy.
Okay, all right. Anything else?
One other matter, if it seems like it's a foregone conclusion that this is going to happen no matter what, and I guess one person that is against it or 5 people that are against it are not going to make a difference. Would you say that's true?
I'd say that's false.
Okay, if I can get 5 people to say they don't want it,
No, that's not the issue.
what is the issue?
The issue is if there's a development going to come in, just like what happened with Reekers, maybe you should discuss with Beck how to alleviate your concern if you think it's a foregone conclusion.
Okay.
And that might be a smarter way to proceed. Instead of saying everything's bad and I want to stop at 100%. consider alternatives.
All right. Is there any consideration for they're planning on putting a 3-foot retaining wall up right next to my property line. Would there be consideration in putting a 4-foot maintenance-free fence on top of that?
Don't know. It's not my
Okay.
job to find out, but I would
Okay.
say if it's my property, I would look into it.
Okay. The other concern I have is the 26-foot road. Is that correct?
Ellie? Yep.
Or whatever you're going to call it. I want to express my disappointment that the people on the ends, both on the 7th Avenue side and the 6th Avenue side, they're going to have headlight beams, and apparently 28 possible cars or more shooting headlight beams every morning and every night. It's not my concern, but I'm sure it's a concern of other people. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
My name is Pat McAlpine. I live on 7th Street. I think one of the things that bothered me the most is when it came up that these things can become rental property. I'm sure that all of our members have drove through town in how our rental properties are. How do we know that's not going to happen over here? I'd be ashamed of myself if I had rental property and the upkeep of it the way it is, and nobody does a thing.
Pat, one thing I can tell you is this group does not discuss those issues, but planning and zoning and the city council is where you want to voice your concern there.
The concern's been brought up, and they were told they can't do anything because they don't have the money to hire somebody.
No.
Terry, if I may.
Go ahead.
Pat, I've been a deputy for 20 years, still am, okay? I get your concern with the rental of this property, if they would ever be rented. My input is, my opinion is, you don't have a worry of that. You have a worry about all the homes that nobody takes care of, and...
The other homes that are rental units that nobody takes care of.
Correct.
The city lets
You
happen.
can't, you shouldn't, you can, but I'm telling you, I wouldn't judge a bad apple to this one. It's apples and oranges, okay? People that are going to potentially rent that are not going to be the ones that are shooting up meth every night that we deal with, that I'm going to deal with tonight, okay? So I get your concern. When they said rental, I thought, oh, okay. East side, there's a lot of rentals. I've hardly ever been in any of them.
No.
You voiced a good concern,
Well-
totally.
And I wish I could honestly take the members' word. Don't worry about the rentals. Drive through Sheldon, take a look at the rentals. Okay? Thanks for your time.
Understand. Thank you.
I'm Dave Poppies. I live 705 7th Street. I'm the one that brought up the idea of the rental. I asked the question. As Pat said, we got a mess in some of these places. And I was surprised. I thought we were sold on this project, that there was always going to be ownership of these units. When I asked the question yesterday, there was a quick yes, they can be rented. So if someone decides to come in and buy this whole 4 or 6 place unit, what if they rent it all out? I understand what you're saying, but there's no guarantees, is there? That's a concern, because we were told as a city that these places would be occupied by the owners. That's the way I thought it was. Maybe I misinterpreted, Sam. If I did, I'm sorry. Okay? So that is a concern in our area, and these things are going to be out of place, as Craig said, when you look at all the housing. Now, everybody wants progress. If that's the way it goes, that's the way it goes, okay? So, you know, obviously we'd accept whatever happens, happens, that's the way it is. But make the right decisions, because this will affect our area pretty big. And Terry, I asked a question, and maybe you did some research. I know there's all kinds of variances. You had 2 of them today, you know, and they're small variances, not a big impact. Do we have a lot of these big impact variances in this town? Did you guys happen to look up? I asked that question yesterday. Huge variances like this, you know, where a lot of them are taking place.
We had a pretty significant one from AGP. Did that go to hearing?
Yeah.
Yep, it did. There are others.
Okay.
Dave, to explain why there's so many variances, I think Steve touched on it. There's no developments like this
Sure.
in the city.
Sure.
If they did have that in place, it wouldn't be a whole page full of variances.
No, and I know it's too late, but maybe, like Craig said, maybe they should have, this is a great project if they probably would have been a nicer place to locate out somewhere where you had all this room. But again, what happens, happens, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, and there's a lot of history with this lot, as well you're aware.
Yep.
And, you know, there's people here that, you know, want things to happen with that lot as well, besides other lots. But one concern that I voiced yesterday with you would be as he said, the lights coming into your window.
Driveway and everything.
And while you're here, and Brad's here, I think he can put a little more of a turn lane in for you, widen out the ends of the driveways, so people can turn before they get directly to the street, if that helps, you know, something to talk to him about. There's room for it. To me, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
anything else?
No, that's fine. Thank you for your time.
Questions for David?
Thanks for listening.
Sure. Phil Dorr? Sure, come on up.
I'm Phil Dorr. I'm one of the gentlemen involved with this project, Cap Builders. And I'm excited for Sheldon. And I just want y'all to know that, because I hear some concerns about rental properties, I know in the town I'm from, I've taken upon myself to buy the rental properties and bulldoze them down. To the officers' comments, the way you get rid of the meth heads is you bulldoze bad houses down. So I'd encourage you folks here who are, you know, talking about these rentals, go buy the houses and bulldoze them. That being said, we're working on this in another city in a similar situation, close by, project like this. And I want to encourage the folks here to think about, the excitement is, you've got a great city, you've had population growth, and the beauty of this project is it brings a lot of people back into the core part of your town. We're not ones to really look as a whole at the outskirts of the town. I'm not old enough to watch a tree grow up for 30 years to finally have orange colors in the fall. I like the beauty of an established neighborhood, and you know, we've taken a lot of consideration into the sixplex on the north side, so we would have a place to put the snow. Casey's built almost 1,000 or more of these in the Des Moines area, and they sell. I wasn't aware of this whole, and Casey, if you can hear this, from your experience in the Des Moines area, are you seeing a lot of them being rented out? Because the experience I've associated with Casey is we're seeing a whole plethora of young professionals, divorced mothers, older people buy these, and they're taking pride in the fact that they own their own home in a really beautiful part of a community. So, you know, we're not here to disrupt the flow, and we love the location. We love this gentleman's neighbor, his yard. We thought it just made it almost like a park with the extra property on the sides. You'd have a park within the community, and we love the location to the park and the location to downtown. So with that being said, I just want to share with you, we're excited to have the opportunity to come and help Sheldon continue to grow. We're impressed with your leadership, and all the people involved. I think Sheldon is a dynamic community, and we want to be part of this for this project.
Thanks, Phil. Any questions for Phil? Any other public comments? If not, I want to take just a minute to defend the group here and Sam about the condition of some of the rentals. I think, Sam, the last count I had from you, we had 146 enforcement actions in the town of Sheldon.
It's way more than that.
That was the last count you gave.
All right.
And the people that don't cooperate sometimes end up here in front of us. And that doesn't necessarily conclude there. Then it goes to litigation, which becomes a lot of expense for the city. And so, if possible, understand that people are trying to do something about it, and that if you can do something individually and on your own, speak up, because neighborhoods go down because people don't pay attention to their neighbors. And what I see of this group, you know, they're not going to be bad neighbors. Now, I don't know, I know when they sell their properties, you're not going to be dealing with them. But my guess is the cost of the units would preclude them being sold to people that aren't going to take care of them. So, that being said, do you have anything else, Sam?
I do not.
But I do want you to understand that we understand the concern about the condition of the rentals in the town of Sheldon, and we're trying to do something about it, but we can't do it alone. Anything else? Is that correct, Lee?
Yeah. Either that or get the state legislature to start allowing me to put the hammer down on drug dealers.
So anyway, that's just my little public comment.
I would support your opinion that the property rental owners that have poorly kept rental units are probably not going to buy a $295,000 unit. And there are a lot of good property renters that do care and are keeping up their rentals. I can say that from my own perspective, but yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about this one.
Any other comments from the group here? Questions for Beck or the staff?
The parking that's in the right-of-way, will they follow the same parking code? I mean, is it going to be up far enough that it doesn't require them to be off the street between November and April?
Want to address that, Brad?
That would probably be more of an enforcement question as far as what parts of town allow parking during what times of year. But it will be within city right-of-way. So whatever regulations city code has or whatever regulations the city adopts, the parking on the south would be subject to that. So the control of how that is addressed would be up to the city and would not be up to the developer since it's on public property.
But there are 56 parking places planned.
There are, yep, there's 14 units. Each has a two-car garage for 2 parking spots per unit, and then each driveway has room for 2 more. So that's correct, 4 spots per
And
unit.
then the angle parking that you had planned on the one side, is that included in the 56?
It is not. We did not include it. It will likely be used by residents of this area or visitors to this area. But since it's on public property, I did not count that in the 56 because we can't control who parks there.
Right.
Anybody within the public could park there.
And there's eight stalls there, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Yep.
Terry, if I may, I would just add that that is one of the variances in front of you, right? Parking is
Yep.
technically not allowed there. There is a fair amount of space there for angle parking to be not hanging out past the curb line more than some other areas, but it is one of the things for your consideration. You could say no to that if you so chose.
And there's 8 stalls there, correct? Or 8 parking spots? Or not?
Well, I think it's more than that.
Was there more than that?
It's,
So Todd, I have a question regarding that. Would the city plow that snow that was in that right away?
Not,
Then we probably wouldn't cite them for parking there. I'm not the Sheldon PD, but generally, like the brick building that's to the southeast of there, that's angle parking along the road, I don't believe they cite those cars from November to April.
They cite them in front of my building, but they don't plow it.
Talk to
So,
the chief.
Just asking.
Todd, why don't you give him the microphone?
There's actually 27 stalls along 7th Street, 2 handicapped in the middle near the center driveways, and 25 additional.
What is the depth of the parking from, sorry?
The angle depth is roughly 17 feet. And then there will be room on the curb or the sidewalk for the bumper to hang over that. But the actual stall from the edge of the sidewalk to the back of the curb is roughly 17 feet. Then there will be about 2 more feet available because the bumper will typically hang over the sidewalk a little bit.
and I believe a parking space in our code is defined by 9 by 18.
So I think April's question, Todd, is, are they gonna allow overnight parking in those slots between November 1 and April 1?
I think the question goes back to you, are you going to allow parking spots to be there?
Period. If they're allowed, they would be allowed to park there.
Yeah, unless you want to sign them, no parking in the winter, but
Yeah.
they,
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
Would they be hanging over on the road for the plow people going?
depends, are they driving a Chevette or are they driving a
Right.
four-door long box,
Correct.
you know, one ton? If they're driving the four-door long box one ton, yeah, they'll be hanging out past the pole lines.
But if I might,
Okay.
but the city would not be maintaining the diagonal parking,
Absolutely not.
okay? And then Brad, if I might ask Brad a quick question. I think it was mentioned, might have been mentioned yesterday, but will not be allowing parking on-street parking in the private street. That will be prohibited on both sides, correct?
That's correct. This is designed so all the parking is off that private street and in front of the homes. If we were going to have parking on one side of the street, we'd want to build a 31-foot wide street, and it's a 26-foot wide street, which is sufficient for two-way traffic to flow safely, not sufficient for angled parking. And really, there isn't room for angled parking because of the amount of driveways that are in the center. If we went 31 feet, there'd be room for a few spots on the north side of the private street to the west and the east of the sixplex, but really not much room for parking. So yeah, it's designed to get everybody off of that private street onto the driveways or in the garages.
You want to address, so the round, did you address the rounded edges that Terry brought up a little bit ago? The conversation with one of the...
Yeah, so the radius is, one question that came up yesterday after the meeting was, can you move to the final plat quick? If you look at the easement area for the private street, it shows a square easement. So that's an access and a utility easement. So the width of that is 46 feet. Well, the street is only 26. Can you flip back to the preliminary now? We got top-notch IT in Sheldon. I found that out early. If you look at the actual street, we have a radius on each end. So that's a turning radius, and some of your questions before about allowing somebody to be able to turn around the corner a little quicker. We do have radiuses at both intersections with the public street.
So the width would be 46 feet at the street angle.
You're going to make me get my scale ruler out again.
Somewhere in that range.
It's roughly 73 feet at the street from the edge of the end of the radius to the end of the radius.
So about 3 times what the actual
Yep.
street is.
Just a hair over 3 times, that's correct.
All right. Does that help, David? All right. Anything else, Brad? For Brad? Okay, Sam, you want to give a little recap? I'm probably not the one to do it.
In front of you, you have a list of variances, and these items may be voted on all at once or individually. There is some overlap to what was discussed yesterday. And then the decision of the Board of Adjustment. The Planning Commission's a different story. Planning Commission's decisions will be subject to 2 city council votes. There'll be a set for hearing and an actual hearing. This portion of the process is finished after today unless it's appealed to district court.
It'd be my recommendation to vote on all the exceptions and variances as one, as did the Planning and Zoning Committee. And that gives the complete plan as is to the city council for their decisions. So it's either up or down, yes or no on the whole package.
I'm going to ask Casey if he has anything to add. He's been dialed in.
Sorry, Casey, you're on the...
Yep, I'm good. I've been listening. You guys are good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So are we voting on the snow thing at all?
No, you're voting on the variances that are in place. Entertain a motion from someone.
I'll make a motion that we approve all the variances that were presented for this project.
Thanks, Kathy. Is there support?
Support.
Thanks, Dave. Angie, call the roll.
Krueger? Yes. Vandenbrink?
Yes.
Roxma?
Yes.
Wood? Yes. And Morrow?
Yes.
Ruvers?
Yes.
Schaefer? No.
What's the tally? Passing. Variance passes. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. And thanks for the public for your input. Item 5, consider variance, no, that's item 6, I'm sorry. Consider variance to facilitate redevelopment of 909 Park Street. And we have an individual here representing, I think it's Dollar Family. Andy Gabbert, correct?
Correct. Yes, that is correct. Good afternoon. My name is Andy Gabbert. I'm with an engineering firm out of Kansas City called Renaissance Infrastructure Consulting. I'm here today as a representative of CBC DT LLC as we pursue to get some variances approved for our project that is located just west of Washington on Park Street or highway out there. Pretty for sure you guys are familiar with the area. There currently is today, I'm going to call it a vacant lot, but it has a couple different buildings on it. One's a metal building that sits towards the back, right up against the north property line. And then there is a secondary building that looks like it's been there for quite some time. It's a little bit smaller. That faces Park Street as well. The entire area right now is all gravel parking lot, and that gravel parking lot pretty much goes lot line to lot line all the way down to the right-of-way line. Today we are asking for the approval of a couple different variances. One would be the parking reduction. Based on your code, we would be required to have, I believe, 35 stalls, and we are going to come in with, I believe, 26 stalls. So we're a small reduction in the amount of parking and then with that, we would also like to get approved a variance on our setback from our building from the north property line, which based on being up against a residential, commercial lot up against residential, which is multifamily to the north of us, the code does require a 25-foot setback. We would like to keep where where the existing building is today, which is roughly about 6 or 8 feet off the north property line. So we're asking for a reduction of 19 feet from that 25 feet so that we can keep the building in line with where it is currently today. We are proposing, like mentioned, a Family Dollar. This is a 10,500 square foot retail building. It will face Park Street with parking on the south side and on the west. I'll keep going, maybe. Can you guys hear me still?
You can step up there and explain it too, and they'll give you a microphone.
Okay, you guys can hear me. So, like I said, we have a 10,500 square foot building. The dark outline is the property line that is existing today. We would be proposing the metal building that, as it currently sits today, sits about in this location. Same location off, so the variance that we were asking for on the setback is from the north. And then overall, we have about 26 parking spaces. The reason we're asking for the variance, it allows our truck to get in and out and make the delivery into our property.
So on your north property, that's Autumn Park, correct?
Excuse me?
Autumn Park Apartments is the
Yes,
north
I believe
property.
that's what it's called, yes.
And the existing lot that you're buying is the Notabome RV lot and...
Yeah,
and
you guys
US
would probably be familiar with it as an RV sales location.
Andy, how many employees are you anticipating?
I don't know that right off the top of my head. I believe there's like between 6 and 8.
No.
Yeah, there's an application in for, that shows 10. So, and that came from Mike.
Okay, 10.
That'd be a mix of full and part-time employees.
And Mike is with CBC LLC, developer for this.
Pardon me, I couldn't hear you.
When he mentioned Mike is the developer with CBC DTL.
And what's his last name?
Baloo.
Baloo?
Yes.
Any questions for Andy?
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Andy, will the 6 foot setbacks be unobstructed? Will there be anything in that?
Yes, we are planning a fence that will go along the north property line.
There won't be anything else. There won't be a dumpster or anything sitting in the 6 foot. There won't be air conditioning units in the 6 foot. There won't be anything else sitting in the 6 foot setback.
We do have a sidewalk that connects it back side of our building, but otherwise, the trash enclosure does sit within our parking lot. All the air conditioner units are on our roof.
So the gray that we're seeing there is sidewalk. It's hard surface between the fence and the building along the northeast corner?
This portion right
Just
here.
that portion, okay.
Yeah, what you're seeing here
Yep,
is the existing steel building as part of the aerial.
okay.
And the 2 buildings there would be removed.
They are being demolished, yes.
Any concerns about traffic flow there from anyone?
We are working with the DOT on that.
Okay.
We've reached out to them. They have stated that the location for where we are showing our entrance is acceptable. Obviously, we still have to work with them on getting the logistics worked out on the engineering of it, but the separation distance to the intersection and the amount of cars that we will have coming in here is acceptable. We will have to have a traffic letter submitted to the DOT that will work through all the logistics of that because we are asking for a wider entrance than what is there currently today. We will be removing the east entrance to this property.
Okay.
You anticipate the 26 parking spots to be adequate for?
Yeah, so Nationally, they try to get 30, but they go anywhere between, 20 and 40, kind of depending on what they get. 30 is kind of like their average. So they're happy with 26. This gets run through the Family Dollar system and approved prior to us making any application. So when they're happy with it, they've run it through their logistics, yeah.
Is there anything of a barrier between your lot and the Wheelchair Dynamics lot? Or is it free for people to travel back and forth?
No, it is not. We do not encourage that. We will have a curbed edge along our parking lot. So on the eastern edge here, there will be a curb, and then there will be a gap, which will have sod or short grass in there.
Okay.
Any more questions for Andy?
I would make a motion to approve the variance.
I'll second it.
If I
Thank you.
might.
Okay.
So before you vote, I just wanted to let you know there were 2 inquiries on this, and one from a neighbor across the street, and I explained the proposal, and they were okay with it. And then this afternoon, I received a call from the Robinsons, who own the property to the west, and I explained the proposal, and they had no concerns.
That's the old farm next to between this development and the hospital. Motion's been made and seconded. Call the roll.
Bud? Yep.
I like for this to be legit, so I didn't hear open to public comments.
Yeah, we opened it to the
You did?
public and sent letters to everyone. Yep.
Here today, they got a chance to speak.
Yeah,
They had
is
a
there
chance to know
someone?
when the meeting was, so, yep, we're good.
Okay.
Perfect, you got the technicality.
Okay.
Thanks, Andy.
Yep.
Gruber?
Yep.
Braxma?
Yes.
Benmaro?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Krueger? Yes. Vandenbrink?
Yes.
Motion carried. Good luck, Andy. Looks like a good project. So, yep, thank you. Any other comments from anyone on the board?
Andy, can you stay for just a minute? I want to talk to you afterwards.
Board member comments or city manager's report? None? Then I need a motion to adjourn. Call the roll.
Bud? Yes. Braxma?
Yes.
Vandenbrink?
Yes.
Krueger? Yes. Schaefer?
Yes.
Benmaro?
Yes.
Gruber?
Yep.
Motion carried.